The breeding mound. 1. Night was drawing in, bringing with it an icy breeze that nipped at exposed flesh. It rustled through the pines, leaving shaking branches in its wake, a gentle reminder of the winter still to come. It had rained that morning, and the smell of earth and moss and pine needles still clung to the air, and beneath them the faint smell of forest rot. The faint smell of forest rot. Jins threatened a smile as he inhaled the natural odor of the woods, his eyes dancing across the boughs of ancient, still wet firs and pines. Their roots rested deep in the earth, like the people that lived here, and their green tips rose high, clasping the amber sky like outstretched hands, never quite able to reach the heavens. There was something to be said for that, and the people that lived here too, Jins thought. But there, a piece that didn't fit. Wolf? Said Didrik, limping up beside him. No, said Jins, crouching down on his haunches to inspect the entrails. Not in these parts, not anymore. A thin line of gristle ran lengthwise beside the path, ending in a small clump of matted fur and exposed bone. From the look of the remains, the carcass had been gnawed on for some time before being discarded. A tattered ear, half chewed, identified it as a hare. Then what? Fox, said Jins. Then what? Fox, said Jins, leaning against his flintlock as he drew himself back to his feet. Marten, badger, some scavenger that finds its home in these woods. Whatever it was, it's got a full belly now. It's hunted the woods bare, said Didrik, letting his weight rest against his own flintlock and rolling a cigarette. There hasn't been any game since we crossed into Vissenberg. Just this dead thing. Jens turned to consider his brother, wondering if he should share his doubts, and then decided that he should. I don't think we're in Vissenberg. We should have made it home by now. Didrik placed the rollie in his mouth and then patted at his pockets for a match. With blue fatigues that painted into a dull gray, and his poorly mended trousers starting to fray above the right knee, were shrapnel inserts once jaunty gait into his staggered shuffle. Here, said Jones, handing him his own box. So we're lost, said Didrik, dragging up the cigarette and then flicking the match out. Pa wants something to say about two Fuden boys who couldn't find their way back after the war. They'll say, unless we're dead, we're no excuses. So we better be dead or find some good excuses. Jins winced at that. There would be no laughter to greet them when they returned home. Perhaps at first, at the sight of Jins and Didrik, but then his mother's eyes would search for Eric, and his father would go quiet like he always did. Didrik saw his look and sighed, exhaling a plume of silvery white smoke and following its path into the canopy with his eyes. They will have heard by now, received his pension and his letters, or else one of the Steinman brothers will have left the news slip. They left before we did. That didn't make it any better. The dread he felt at the thought of facing his parents had formed a knot in the pit of his stomach, tightening with each step they took closer to home. They would stare at him without blame, but the questions would become regardless. How could he have let this happen? How could Eric be dead? There was nothing he could have done. Eric's face flashed before him, disappearing as he clambered over the wall of the trench, smiling, always smiling. A thunderstorm of cannon and muskets, the earth shaking with each pounding beat of the drum, and then Eric managed his body in the mud, punctured by Prussian lead, his crooked grin hidden by blood. No more smiling. We still have some light, said Jens, shouldering his flintlock as he tried to push the memory away. He stepped onto the path, not waiting for Didrik to catch up. After a brief pause, his mother limped after him.